Calling this College Township Council regular meeting to order this Thursday, April 6th, 2023. Will all who are able please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, open discussion for the public. Is there anybody here who wishes to say something that is not already on the agenda? Sue.
Hi, I didn't put up the agenda yet, so I'm not sure, but I wanted to say a big thank you to Don Franzen and staff and to everybody that's helped that the trees are going to get planted next week. Amazing. And it's going to be 13 trees, and they're going to be all different kinds. And Derek Calvin's been really good. Seeing trees and big windows where, so that's exciting. And also, I don't know how many of you know, but the sign at the post office has been there since 1981. And I figured out that's 42 years or something. So I found somebody who would make a new board. An anonymous person, and Wendy Snuffier has done the calligraphy, and it's getting prepared for outside, and it's going to be put up next week as well. So, two nice things for Lamont happening. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you. That's Sue Smith from Lamont. Anything else, Sue?
No.
Okay.
You should have all that in the newsletter, things going on, so. It seems like the busy season was already here, and we had nothing quiet in the middle. It's been busy all year, so a lot of people signed up for things, doing things on the Village Green and in the grain elevator, so now that COVID's finally dying off, that's great, so
Great.
Thank you.
Glad to hear it. Anybody else? Please come to the lectern. State your name and where you live.
Good afternoon or evening. Gene Shields, Goldfinch Drive, State College. The reason I'm here is I understand you're considering putting spin bicycles in some of the parks throughout the township. I don't think when you guys put parks in years ago, it was for commercial businesses to set up a footprint, even though it may be a small footprint. Once you start allowing commercial business to set up one footprint in, how do you stop others? Parks are not for commercial businesses, they're for the enjoyment of the people, for kids, for picnics, for lying around enjoying the sun. Actually, it's just, I thought there was ordinances or rules or things about not allowing commercial type businesses or any type of business to establish anything inside of a park. And I was kind of shocked when I heard that I think 3 or 4 of the parks you were considering putting these spinning bicycles in. And I'm just here to hope that you reconsider that. I don't know if that was on the agenda or not, but that's why I showed up.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Shields. It is on the agenda. It's OB2, which is a bit later. So if you'd like to stay, you're welcome. If not, we will take your comments into consideration. So thank you for participating tonight. Anybody else? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to any new agenda items for the good of the order. No. All right, next up, special presentation, SP1, SCLO Library Annual Update. Kimberly Fergola, welcome.
Hi. Well, thank you for having me here this evening. I am Kimberly Fergola, your representative on the SCLO Library Board of Trustees. I always start out by giving you some information on your circulation. So College Township in 2022 represented 16% of all of the circulation, and that totaled over 75,000 items that were checked out by College Township residents. So that's a lot. The places that residents can return items, there's one at the Nittany Mall and then one over at the Weiss store. Oh guys, I never know, but however you say it, over at that one there was over 17,000 items returned, and the one at the Nittany Mall had over 2,500 items returned. So there's quite a few residents making good use of the library, and so your funding's going be used very well and appreciated by those people. Also, in addition to the circulation, each year I try to pick out something unique about the library that people might not know. And so this year I'm going to talk a little bit about new parents and children and a couple of those programs. So for new parents, Mount Nittany Health has partnered with the library and they put in a nursing and lactation space. So that is new there at the library. And it's not just for people at the library to use while they're there, it's for anybody. So if some people who work downtown or are shopping or anybody who has that need, they can go be accommodated there at the library and make use of that. Also, in partnership with Mount Nittany Health, they are distributing Welcome New Baby brochures to help parents understand what is available for them at the library. And some of the things included are things like information on how to read while holding a wiggling baby or a toddler. So helping people who didn't have children before and enjoyed reading still be able to do that for a little while before they end up reading only children's books all the time. There's also a Saturday time slot that was added for the baby lap sit program. And that, I mean, it was always offered during the weeks, but this new Saturday one is for the working parents who maybe aren't able to attend during the week. It's very popular, and that is where babies up to 14 months old come with the parent to experience that program. So all in all, in 2022, children and caregivers attending programs at the library, 9,600. So again, people are really making use of those programs. And I know you have a long meeting, so I'm going to keep it short. But just because the meetings are always long, I don't really know your agenda, but they're always long, right?
Good guess.
Yes.
So the last thing I want to say is just thank you for letting us put something in your newsletter, the Gateway newsletter, that we could, advertise to your residents a little bit about our summer reading program. So thank you for that.
All right. Any questions for Ms. Fregola?
Comments?
Comments? Yeah,
Me?
sure.
No, always. Two things.
That's why our meetings are always so long.
Well, no, she's here once a year.
Yeah.
And the library is a phenomenal regional resource. And I appreciate the numbers, but I'll tell you, for the record, I don't necessarily hold the value to College Township any one-to-one ratio with how many people use it. It might be a counter formula thing with me, but the other point, so I mean, I think I'm totally satisfied with our investment, regardless of what you said the numbers were. I'm there frequently with my granddaughter now, and I want to know, do the folks who staff the children's area, are they volunteers? They deserve special recognition. Even if they're paid, they deserve special recognition. For anyone who's ever been in that area, especially on days when there isn't school, it is crazy, but crazy in a good way.
So they love it, whether they're volunteers or paid staff, but you have to be, as you indicated, a special kind of person to love it,
Oh.
because it can be a zoo.
Yeah.
But you would have to inquire about whatever individual you're encountering at the moment.
No,
They're both
it was-
volunteers.
It was almost a rhetorical comment.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give kudos in general to the resource, and particularly the people that staff it, whether they're paid or not. It's wonderful. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. Anybody on this side?
I appreciate the work that's being done at the library. I had the opportunity to tour the library with Lisa, and she shared a lot of what we're doing. I really didn't understand how much is being done outside of lending books. And so I appreciate especially hearing about what's happening with parents and children. So thank you for bringing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one of the things I appreciate about our library is that they seek to find pockets of population that they can reach. And you do such a good job of it. So please send our messages back to whoever needs to hear them and thank them for us.
I will definitely give that feedback. Thank you all.
Great, thanks. All right, moving on to plans. P1, Mount Nittany Medical Center Bed Tower Preliminary Final Land Development Plan. Lindsay?
All right, thank you. I have a brief presentation tonight, and then the hospital representatives will have something to present as well. So Mount Nittany Medical Center is expanding by adding a 10-story bed tower, a parking garage, and a central energy unit. Considerations during this plan review included stormwater, lighting, landscaping, circulation, bike and pedestrian connections, parking, and traffic. You can go to the next slide. This is an overview of the medical campus boundary, and you can see in the middle there outlined is the hospital parcel itself. Sidewalks and pedestrian, you can go to the next slide. And this is just an overview of what is there existing on top and what is proposed below. Sidewalk and pedestrian facilities were considered, and they scored an 11. So go ahead, Mike, to the next screen.
Sorry, jumped ahead of one.
That's all right. It scored an 11 on our prioritization matrix. And per the requirements of the ordinance, if you can go back to that overview that showed the medical campus, the next one, yeah. So if you can see there, the property surrounding the hospital is all owned by Penn State. And Penn State also owns the other building, the CSB. Yeah, thank you. That building is also owned by Penn State, but there are 3 different parcels there. Okay, so sidewalks, since that is the case, and the property isn't adjacent to a public street, sidewalks actually aren't required in this case. But it was noted, and we did bring it up. You can go to the next slide, please. There is that missing link that exists between the Park Avenue sidewalk and the sidewalk that goes there down to Hospital Drive toward the hospital. Staff did meet with representatives from the hospital on the 5th, and we went over all of the remaining comments that we had. It appears that some of our concerns are being moved toward satisfaction, so we do have these remaining comments left. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the plan conditioned upon the conditions set forward here and in the engineer's memo that you had in your packet tonight. So the representatives from the hospital are here, and I do believe they wanted to share something, so. Oh, Mr. Ruth, I believe, is going to present.
Yes, I can share my screen, and I'd like to...
Yeah, it's just lagging here, sorry. There you go.
There we go, there it is. Okay, thank you. Anyway, I'd like to give Brian Roach, CFO with Mount Nittany, an opportunity to make some introductory statements. Go ahead, Brian, thank you.
Thanks, Jim. So as Jim said, I'm Brian Roach. I'm the Chief Financial Officer at Mount Nittany Health, and we appreciate your consideration and time this evening. We're pretty excited to present our patient tower, and I'll keep my remarks pretty succinct. I know you have a long agenda. We really believe this investment back in the community is closely aligned with our mission of healthier people, stronger communities, and the improvement of patient experience and staff experience from the execution of this project will increase dramatically. And so, once again, we thank you for your time tonight, and we look forward to the discussion. Jim?
Okay, thank you. Next slide, please. Brief summary of the project, and I know some of you have seen this before, but for others in the audience, the project is actually 3 new buildings on the campus, a new parking garage, a 10-story patient tower, and a new central utility plant that will help power the new patient tower. The licensed bed count is at 260 and will remain at 260 after the project. And then we had some milestone dates there for construction start and also the end of construction, targeting sometime early 2026. So just a quick snapshot of the existing campus, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. Next slide. And this is the proposed site plan showing the 3 new structures. From left to right, we have the new parking garage, 177 spaces, the new 10-story patient tower, and then finally, in the southeast corner of the site, a new 2-story central energy plant. Next slide. And this is a site plan a little more detailed, just showing some of our strategies for new site utilities and stormwater management and so forth. I won't bore you with the details of this slide. Next slide. Okay, so we'd like to just share some of our most recent building renderings, and we're going to start way out on Route 322. This is viewed from 322 East, heading towards the exit leading to Mount Nittany. Next slide. Another view from the western part of 322. You can see the 10-story structure on the hill there. To the left of that, you could also see Beaver Stadium, so you can get an idea of the scale of both of the structures. Next slide. At East Park Avenue and Hospital Drive, this is the main entrance into the hospital campus, so you can see the new patient tower will have a very prominent presence upon entry into the site. And next slide. And finally, entering the site, making your way around the front parking lots. From left to right, we have the existing hospital, then the new 10-story patient tower, and then finally the 177-car parking garage. Next slide. Just to give you an idea of the kind of the aesthetics of the architecture we're pursuing, a lot of brick elements that will tie into the existing hospital. But as you can see here, kind of at the pedestrian entry level, we're also working in accents of natural stone and wood-like material. Next slide. Looking back at the parking garage, as Brian noted, this project is about patient satisfaction, staff satisfaction. This is a view of the new parking garage. You'll notice to the left there, behind the two trees, there's a covered walkway extending across the road there that will actually provide weather protection for patients and visitors coming from the garage and going into the new patient tower. Next slide. Also, the new tower will incorporate a lot of glazing, large windows at all of the new patient rooms. We are trying to open up the new patient rooms to natural daylight and also views of the landscape beyond. Next slide, please. A view of the new patient tower looking towards the university. This will be the facade facing Penn State. You'll notice at the ground level there we do have a new dining terrace that will be immediately adjacent to the new cafeteria that's part of the project. Also a lot of opportunity there for a lot of natural landscaping. Next slide. A view from the west, looking over the existing cancer center, once again at the new patient tower. And then finally, the last slide, just a quick snapshot of the new 2-story central energy plant. We are working in some decorative screen elements very similar to some of the decorative screening that you saw on the parking garage. And that's it for our slideshow. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Let's start with questions and comments from council. I'm going to start with Susan.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I appreciate you going back over that, and I haven't seen the renderings before, so it was very helpful to be able to see that. I do have several questions, and I want to go back to some of the comments and questions that I had at our last meeting, and also some of the comments that my fellow council members had made about the campus, specifically the walkability of the campus. I had some questions at the last meeting regarding the use of the space in the existing hospital that will no longer be used as bed space. I had a chance, thanks to some education from the staff who helped me look at plans this week, and looking at the notes, specifically note 13, the existing hospital has about 400,000 square feet. And that's a lot of square footage, and I really would like to understand better how that space might potentially be used. The answer at last meeting was for administration purposes. So one of the reasons I ask that is, going forward, would there be plans for outpatient services in that space that were not currently being offered? And how would that impact the traffic flows, the parking, and future structures on campus? Because it obviously is a pretty limited campus. So do you have a sense of how that space will be used, a little bit more detail?
Yeah, that's a great question. This is Brian, CFO. So there is a considerable amount of space that actually is not moving over to the tower. We just renovated women's and children's, our lab areas, they'll remain intact. And so not everything in the existing space is moving over to the new tower. So it's a considerable less amount of space, if you will, that will become available than what you would think if everything was moving to the tower. For instance, our ORs are staying where they currently are. We are working through a backfill plan, and really no decisions have been made specifically at this point.
Thank you, thank you. I guess the other questions that I had, looking at that, I think the Planning Commission addressed questions about the loss of parking spaces, but also there should be a plan in place for replacing other spaces that we might need in the future. Is there a sense of where those areas would be set up?
Actually, in some discussions this morning with township staff, we went back.
I'm sorry, could you just introduce yourself?
Sorry, Mark
Thanks.
Sedell from HRG.
Appreciate it.
We discovered in the zoning ordinance that the required parking is actually based on a parking study and a parking demand study, which was submitted with the project. The value for 400 square foot is also in the ordinance under a parking table, so they kind of conflict with each other from that side of it. So we don't really need, by ordinance, to provide a reserved area for parking. I will say that we studied the campus heavily based on the initial review comments, and we had areas that we had identified for future parking deck expansion adjacent to the existing parking deck that's there, because that's about the only place that we can fit it. And if we needed to develop it in that location, we'd actually be reducing impervious area coverage also. So we know we have the availability to expand parking if we needed to meet that requirement, but I don't think it's a requirement required anymore.
So you would be expanding up in that space?
Oh, no,
Building up?
adjacent.
Adjacent, okay, thank you.
There's a parking field, surface parking field adjacent to it right now, and we would just put another parking deck on top of that.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Schaefer from Mr. Schaefer, are you here for this or another plan?
You should be here for this.
He's here for this.
Sorry, I'm here for this.
Okay, if you wanted to speak to that question, I just wanted to point out that you were here too.
Yeah, the park, the parking study, that there was a parking demand study completed, and the study showed that the demand, existing demand with no growth was 1026, and we're supplying a field of 1392. So we're going to have a surplus of 222 stalls on campus.
And then one thing specifically that was targeted with the intent of this design was to increase the amount of parking closer to the front door and main entrance to have a better experience for parking for patients. So they're also working through organizing how staff are going to be parking in other areas on campus to prioritize for patient visitor parking at the front of the building.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'll also add that the garage is simply there. I think it may have been mentioned for allocation purposes and proximity for patient visitors. The problem is not a lack of supply. It's simply a improvement in accessibility for parking.
Yeah,
Please,
for
Adam.
For the sake of clarity, I think it's important, Dawn, that we explain the relationship. Typically, Mr. Schaefer, representing Trans Associate, does work with College Township for transportation reviews. That's not necessarily the case here. Perhaps you can explain who our visitors are.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So yeah, Nick Schaefer in this case is representing the
We're all
hospital.
changed teams all of a sudden.
And we have Robert Watts of McCormick Taylor and Associates has reviewed Nick's work. So he is, in this case, they're our backup and transportation engineer appointed this year. And in this case, they're actually the go-to,
For college.
yeah, for College Township.
Okay, thank you. Susan, do you feel do you have more questions?
No, I think that answers the questions I had. Thank you, Mark. I think the last piece, or the last subject, the last questions I had were more general and with regard to the questions we brought up at the last meeting regarding the walkability of the campus. And I think Mr. Roach made a good point that we're trying to improve the patient experience, but we're also trying to improve the staff experience. I had an interesting experience last night leaving late. I do work for Mount Nittany, and I was leaving the office around 8 o'clock. There was a nurse walking through the parking lot. I stopped her and spoke with her. There are quite a few staff who do want to walk during their break time, and unfortunately, a lot of the walking that happens on campus right now happens in the parking lot areas, specifically in the parking lot areas in the Center Sciences Medical Building, and that happens during business hours. That's a pretty dangerous parking lot to be making loops in. So we're leaving, the building footprint is in the Healing Garden, which is one small walking place, but staff is looking for longer walking spaces. I looked around on campus, sort of tried to come around the loop right by the Cancer Center, but the imaging truck is there now. The gates are closed and the imaging truck is there now. So are there any plans in the future to build some sort of walkable path?
Well, I'll answer. It's Joe Seekirk with Plant Moran Cresso, so, or Brian may want to elaborate. So yes, there are plans to build a walking path around the campus. The replacement for the Healing Garden is in development. We're likely would go back for an administrative amendment to the plan when that's complete. But there is absolute plans to increase a walking path around the outskirts of the campus. So
And is there a timeline for that as relates to the project?
it will be built with the project.
With the project?
It'll be open with the same time.
And are there spaces that are being allocated to move the elements of the Healing Garden that we talked about moving throughout campus?
There is. There actually is quite a bit of space around the building that will be developed to replace the Healing Garden. There's also quite a few respite gardens specifically dedicated to staff and dedicated to patients between the buildings. So I think you'll be happy, and then the staff will be as well. That's part of the issue of the additional space is there's a need for more staff space in the building and the campus, and that will be provided in a lot of those areas. So,
Okay.
Brian, if you had anything else, go ahead.
No, I think that's a great point, and as Joe said, that we are prioritizing some type of walking path. I myself take many walks on nice days and see our staff out there getting fresh air and getting a little bit of respite, so it is under serious consideration.
Yeah, I think people want to be able to walk distance during their break too. So the gardens are a nice idea, and I think that's important when you need a place to go and just, decompress and take a breath. But in terms of really kind of walking off and getting your steps in when you can't get them otherwise, doing that on a distance would be great. So I don't know what the process is in terms of how all this works together. I'm new to my role on council, so understanding how that's incorporated in the planning before this plan is completed would be helpful to me.
Yeah, it's just a matter of as you develop the plans, but there is an absolute plan. There is, and it's funded to build a walking path around the campus. It's just a matter of working through the details. It's one step at a time, but that's on the agenda. It'll be open at the same time as the rest of the campus.
Well, then I'll look forward to an invitation to the ribbon cutting.
You will absolutely. I'm sure that can be arranged.
Thank you. I think that's it. Thank you.
Dustin?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Eric?
Sure. First of all, I support this plan. I said this at the sketch plan, and I think it might, as this thing moves forward, somebody ought to be talking a little bit more about how this is an improvement, whether it's intended or not, with the hope of building a facility that will attract and retain high-end talent that will make State College, make this area a place that people go to instead of driving to Hershey or Danville or wherever. I think that's understood by us, but maybe not generally with the public. They look at the no increase in beds and they think, what's going on? They don't understand, I think, at least what I understand or what I support. So for what it's worth, whatever opportunities you have, if you're comfortable noting that, and this is more for the hospital folks. And just a couple quick questions. The slide that showed the main entrance, is there going to be another, like, main entrance looking thing under the tower? There was a slide that showed an overhang in the main entrance. Is that just?
That's a new main entrance. It's really adjacent to where the existing one is, but it's a brand new main entrance.
Main entrance, as part of the tower?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
But it's not replacing the current main? It is
It
replacing?
is replacing, yes.
Okay, okay. I didn't understand that, sorry. One of the conditions recommended says, it's number 8, provide proof of traffic impact study approval. Who's approving the
Well,
traffic impact study?
actually, as a result of our meeting yesterday, and I'll let Rob Watts chime in here, but as a result of the meeting yesterday, we sort of misunderstood some of the numbers that were being presented, and that the increase is actually less than triggers our TIS.
All right, so
So
that's,
that really, that note can be taken off.
that's not, okay.
Yeah.
That confused me.
Yeah, well, we were confused.
Yes.
And the meeting yesterday, really, I think we ironed most of the things out. I'll let Rob speak here, but it seems like we're pretty good with what's been presented. Rob, do you have anything to add or correct me on?
Yeah, Rob Watts from McCormick Taylor here, assuming you can hear me on there.
Yep.
We did have a very productive meeting yesterday, hashed out all the comments, a lot of questions that we had about what we were seeing in the study. And the changes really, I think, make the impact in traffic for this particular development much more minimal than what we thought. The only thing kind of coming out of this that we did in looking at how traffic is reducing on Park Avenue, or actually has reduced over the last 5 years through the pandemic, and it's just not coming back to the level that it was. The only thing we would anticipate possibly wanting to do with the signal at Hospital Drive and Park Avenue is some sort of retiming. With the hospital adding some traffic, Park Avenue traffic reducing, there's sort of a re-optimization of the green time that could be made there that would actually better serve the hospital traffic, I think, in the end. I think the last time that signal plan was looked at was 2018, and 5 years later after a pandemic. It might be good to do that, but other than that, we don't think there are any geometric changes that could be needed, and the traffic volumes don't trip the trigger where a TIS would be required. That was sort of the big takeaway from yesterday's meeting when we all sat down around this.
Yeah. Thanks, Rob. I
So-
just want you to know that I don't consider you guys a backup. I consider you one of the alternate consultants we appoint every year along with Schaefer. I would agree with that, particularly during shift change. I've been up there quite a bit lately, and it's around 2:45 to 3:15, and the other shift change then later. But the one during the day is quite notable. I don't know if that type of flexibility exists to have, traffic timing, adjusted, to that level of detail, unless you had cameras or some kind of real-time sensor, but that's all I had, Carl.
Oh, thanks. Rich?
Yes, thank you. Overall, I really appreciate the process used here. Overall, with the sketch plan, the renderings were wonderful. Always, picture says 1,000 words, so those really help us envision what your vision is and support it and everything. So thank you for bringing that to the table. Along with the everyday care, the pandemic has showed us a whole nother side, and I think this tower really speaks to that, to meeting that need in our community and everything. In working through the various comments and everything from the last meeting, again, I'll echo the support for a wellness trail. Kind of goes right in your mission there and everything. And also, we'd also thrown about reflection areas, because not every time you go to the hospital is for the greatest of causes. With regard to our cover memorandum, Are we making progress with the addressing issue? I'll ask staff.
Defer to Mark here. He's had the most recent conversations.
That was discussed at our meeting yesterday as well, and I had a sidebar with the new physical plant operation, one of the head guys. We've already hooked up with 911, and we're going to work to schedule a meeting and start this process hopefully sooner than later.
Right, but we're seeing, this isn't gonna carry on. I know it's gotta be part of it, but everybody understands that that needs to be resolved as part of the thing.
And we've also requested a note on the plan that occupancy will not be granted
Right.
until the readdressing is complete.
Right.
That should be another thing to incentivize moving this along.
If staff could give me some background on note number 11 in the conditions, parking issues to be to the satisfaction of the township engineer and township consulting traffic engineer.
Well, actually, I think we sort of talked about that already in answering Susan's questions. Rob, do you have anything you want to add to what we've already discussed as far as parking? What they're showing is that they have the adequate parking and that they are in fact moving it out front where people want to be. Last week or so, Mark and I went out there on a mission to see what was the parking looking like. And you went in and the front parking lot's full. You know, not 100%, but you would have had to roam around to find a couple spots. Go out back, 60% full. Go to the garage, 30%. I mean, so there was a lot of parking, but no one wants to park there. And I think they're trying to address that with by putting the new parking deck out front.
Yeah.
So, yeah, Rob, do you have anything you want to add to that?
A couple things that came out of the meeting that we had yesterday. The hospital, I think, recognizes the situation that they're in with the parking. And they had two things they were going to try to do to get people to the right place. And one was wayfinding, and the other was to implement a valet type of service at the main entrance point to try to mitigate some of those concerns. That they're aware that the parking is leaving the area where it's in most demand. I think one of the things that we're going to see is a revised version of the parking study and the traffic study, so we can verify some of the things that we heard in the meeting, but it needs to work its way in some of those issues with the figures and some of the analysis results. We want to see that finalized. We want to see that report in good shape. And we'll have all that documented, I think, in that report, how they plan to address those concerns.
Okay.
So the comment needs to remain.
Well, I don't disagree that the comment needs to be remained. I think some wordsmithing. Potential parking issues to be resolved to the satisfaction of the township engineer, I think lends itself better to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, actually, that was written before yesterday's meeting.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Yeah, right.
before yesterday's meeting, we thought we were in.
I mean, the hospital's not experiencing anything, anybody who has a commercial enterprise or the borough of State College, if it isn't right where somebody wants to be, there's no parking. You know, so that you're moving it around to a more accessible, and then the valet is an interesting touch on that as well. But yeah, you're always going to be beat up about that there's no parking if it isn't right where they want it. So that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I had a follow-up question about the readdressing. Item 9 on the potential motion does not mention anything about a note. Is there currently a note on the most updated plan? No. So maybe 9 should say, add a note to the plan, so that it's more formal?
We did discuss adding a note yesterday. They will, but I believe that it would be best to add it. Thank you.
Okay, somebody's
Yeah.
taking that note for the note. Super. And then I just had an additional comment about, while you're drawing little walking paths around, be nice to just squiggle one right off of the hospital campus itself onto Orchard Road. So that would be a great access for walkability to the hospital, and access, I think, connecting the hospital and Millbrook Marsh would would be a benefit potentially for your mission statement. That's just a polite suggestion. One more thing was lighting. The hospital is a beautiful city on a hill. That's how we refer to it, being down in the valley, looking up at our city on the hill, which is a hospital. I know that the lighting has requirements to not have any lead over or whatever you call it.
Trespass.
Trespass, thank you. Though there's already a lot of lighting on the campus, is the additional lighting. I feel like every time the hospital expands, there's like a whole new lighting section, and now I just have this feeling you have 3 times as much lighting as you need, because every time you expand, you add an additional amount of lighting. Can anybody speak to that?
I don't know that, we looked a lot at the existing lighting.
Okay.
Yeah, we ensured that everything was down, was pointing down, everything was cut off, and that there was no light trespass.
All new fixtures are going to be cut off.
Okay.
I can tell you that because we are displacing surface parking with a parking deck,
Yeah.
a lot of the lights that are in that space for the surface parking are going away.
Okay. Okay.
Good point.
So you are, yeah, just an encouragement to look at it as a whole, because light tends to add up over time. And I think that, and then finally, the sidewalk connection that was briefly mentioned in the slideshow at the very end of the street. Can you speak to that?
I can, I just drove through it several times again before coming to the meeting. And actually, if you go to that intersection and you look, pedestrian has it placarded many, many times, pedestrians prohibited at the intersection.
Penn State has it placard? No,
PennDOT,
PennDOT has it placard.
Mark, are you sure that that's what that sign means?
no pedestrians?
My understanding is that when you see this, you're talking about the pedestrian with the buster through it?
Yeah,
My understanding from PennDOT is that means no pedestrian crossing amenities provided. We should follow up on that.
Well, yeah, that's what it means, but
It
in other
doesn't mean
words,
no pedestrians allowed.
okay.
well,
It was a
but
nice
you're
try,
not
but
supposed to be there, that's what it's saying.
That's the intent.
Well, how do we
of the
reconcile that?
placard is to
Well,
avoid people
it's-
from crossing the roads in those
well,
intersections.
now you're putting words in PennDOT's mouth,
Let's,
which I'm not sure is fair.
See if Rob, do you have anything to throw at that comment?
Yeah, I think it has more to do with the fact that a safe pedestrian crossing has not been established there, and it's definitely not a place where pedestrians are generally anticipated. I think on most of those approaches out there, you wouldn't see many pedestrians crossing them. PennDOT is getting away from posting those signs, and generally, you have to really justify them to get them in place. But it's my understanding it has to do with a safe pedestrian crossing is not provided, and the accommodations are not provided.
Which is excuse me, but that's exactly what I was saying, Rob, and, because I've had this discussion with PennDOT, and one of the reasons they're getting away from it is exactly what happened tonight. There's a misinterpretation as to what that sign means, and it's, you're not the only one. Everybody thinks that's the case.
It's a warning, not a prohibition.
Right. Rich said it's a warning, that not necessarily a prohibition.
So, I mean, the sidewalks go close. Can we get them to, where does Cata drop off?
Well, it's also at the front door in one direction, but down on the road in the other. So there are people who get off.
That have to cross that grass
There are
or
people
walk
who-
in the street to get to the,
I mean, it's not seen frequently, but there are people who do walk up Hospital Drive to the
If
hospital.
you're coming from Innovation Park to the hospital, you have to get off on Park Avenue and walk up.
And typically they walk with traffic at their back. When they're walking up to the hospital, they're walking on the side of traffic.
There are people who also just walk from campus.
There are. Or people who get dropped off at the bottom of Hospital Drive.
so the question is, what is required in our ordinance? Not anything?
Well,
That is not land owned by the hospital, is that correct?
Correct.
So we have nothing in our ordinance that says you have to do improvements on other land. Now, if they owned that, we could say, take it out to the state road.
Okay,
Can I ask another question that
please.
related to that?
I mean, anybody
Okay,
can chime in.
so
if you
I
like.
understand that. So is Hospital Drive either a township road or is there an easement?
No, it's a township road.
Okay, so the access,
It's us.
okay, well then that explains it, because otherwise there'd have to be an easement with the adjacent property owner, which is Penn State, which could also be extended to include sidewalks. So the fact that they are on the township road, but because they're not adjacent to where we're asking for the improvement, that's an offsite improvement? Yeah. Okay.
Well, let's get that on our official map.
And that's a legitimate way to address the issue.
Okay. Sue Smith.
Just as
Oh.
a quick reference for that too, where that sidewalk terminates now is just about at the right-of-way line for PennDOT's Park Avenue, so any work that you would have to do would also have to be permitted by PennDOT.
Sure. Okay, thank you. Sue, I see your hand up.
Yep, I just have a quick suggestion. I was out there visiting recently, and all the signs in the front parking lot say V. And if you're looking for your car and you can't remember where you parked, if they all say V, it's no help. I don't know if there's some better way to do it. I know at Danville they're A, B, C, D, so you can remember the letters and go find your car. But
All right, we have somebody to
Thanks for
speak to that.
Um,
Oh, multiple people to
And,
speak.
and the township, we are addressing wayfinding, and that is, part of this project, not just internally as you enter the main doors or any of the doors, it's externally on our campus as well, so that is part of this project.
I have another suggestion. I visited, when I was a trustee at the hospital, I visited a hospital in Canada. And when you walked in the front door, there was a sign that said, follow the red line to this one department, follow the blue line to pediatrics, follow the yellow line. And on the floor, there were different colored tiles, and it was, I was a trustee for 8 years, and I never found anything easily inside the building. And I made that suggestion years ago in the 80s, but it's really difficult to find places unless you, I mean, the second time it's okay, but the first time it's difficult. So signing inside is another suggestion, I would say.
Thanks, Sue. We have someone to speak to the parking lot, I think.
Yes, Bob Donahue, I'm the Chief Facilities Managing Officer for Mountain Indian Medical Center. In relation to the visitor lot signs, that was actually brought to our attention about a month ago by a visitor, and we've been working on that since. We're just about to sign off on the design, and each of those Vs are going to go from Vs to numbers. So folks coming in from those lots will have a much easier time finding their vehicle. And also on the wayfinding discussion, internal to the facility, that's an ancillary plan associated with the project. We have a sign consultant on board, and they're going to be working with us with new wayfinding signage all the way from the entrance road to the campus, into the main entrance, and throughout the building. So that's going to look and feel totally different than what it is right now. And I've been in hospitals too that have the markings on the floors. We're going to head in a different direction on that, and our signage system is going to be really effective at the end of the day.
Thank you. When I broke my hand in 2nd grade, I followed lines to the x-ray room. I'll never forget it. It was really fun.
Sometimes there are things along the wall for sight impaired people, that there's something you can feel to get to the right place if you're.
Oh, sure. All right. Anybody else, comments or questions? See, yes, Susan.
I have just one last comment or, observation. Thank you, Bob, for sharing that about the wayfinding. Even as an employee of almost 30 years for Mount Nittany, I still struggle to find where I need to be on campus, particularly around by the shared services building. So that section of the campus is still, not well defined. So I hope I assume that will be included in the process of wayfinding. This is a campus-wide process.
Yeah,
as part of
absolutely.
the
It'll be
project.
every lot and every entrance
Great.
to the building. In that regard, I want to go back to a comment that Eric and Rich brought up, which I think was pretty insightful about the importance of this project to our staff. It often gets lost in translation with a large project like this. What we've done, and there's really a lot of excitement by our staff for the future of this project, And the reason for that is, number one, it's going to really free up a lot. It's going to add capacity, and when single rooms are so important, as we've learned over the past few years, we'll have that in every room. But the reason they're so excited is because we've involved them all along the way. And we've got staff nurses leading project teams, and we did room mock-outs within the facility where we actually built out a patient room and brought physicians, PAs, and nursing and techs and housekeepers through those areas. We had over 300 people walk through and put sticky notes up and provide us with their feedback. That in of itself makes this project feel like it's theirs. And at the end of the day, it kind of really is. The outcome of it is healthy patients, but by having great staff that we can recruit and retain is ultimately going to be the foundation for our success on a move-forward basis. And they've been instrumental so far in the design of our new patient tower.
That's great, thank you. Anybody ready?
I'm happy to make a motion.
Do you have the note?
Yeah, I have a question for staff, though, before I make a motion. If we move to approve the plan conditioned on a note being established, a note added to the plan establishing formal address, do we have to have the requirement that applicant shall have the new ad in place before occupancy is issued, or is that understood if it's a note on the
I
plan?
think that's an important thing to put on.
Okay, so we need to have both.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the note doesn't automatically require them to have it done before occupancy is granted.
That's correct.
Technically, we could say tomorrow, we're readdressing, you have 60 days, here's your address. We understand the burden it would be on the hospital, and this is just to encourage them to work with us so we can
Okay.
do what's best for
So it's
everybody.
necessary to say both?
We need to have both.
Both, okay, thanks. Yes, I move to approve the preliminary final land development plan of Mount Nittany Medical Center Bed Tower Project. Excuse me. Dated February 20th, 2023, and last revised March 22nd, or March 12th, 2023, subject to the following conditions. 1, within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied. Final signatures must be obtained, and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds. Failure to meet the 90 days recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. Second, pay all outstanding review fees. Third, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments from staff. 4, fully comply with the College Township Code, Section 108-12. 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recordation. 6, provide an intent to serve letter from the University Joint Authority. 7, provide NPDES approval. 8, work with College Township zoning officer to add a note to the plan establishing formal addressing. Also, applicant shall have new addressing in place prior to the occupancy of all new structures. 9, provide an area to be designated for future parking as reduction in parking is proposed. Reserved area, sorry.
It's okay.
Reserved areas shall meet the total parking area requirement and shall be included in the stormwater calculations. 10, any potential parking issues be addressed to the satisfaction of the township engineer and township consulting traffic engineer. 11, provide proof of Penn State approval of use of the lands during, provide proof of Penn State approval of the lands, of use of lands during construction. And then lastly, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of conditional approval letter from the township engineer.
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. And opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you for your time.
very much. Thank you. Thank you.
All right, next up, P2, State College Area Food Bank Building Addition Preliminary Final Land Development Plan. Lindsay.
Thank you. The State College Area Food District, Food Bank is relocating. It's relocating to Gerald Street in College Township. 167 Gerald Street is located in the General Commercial Zoning District, and the property is located behind College Gardens and Burger King off of East College Avenue. The proposal is for building additions and a truck deck. The building addition in the back, which is on the left, is 3,150 square feet. The front building addition is 1,620 square feet, and the dock addition is 318 square feet. Considerations during the land development process, we considered landscape buffering plantings, which you see at the top of the page, are a lot thicker than how they were prior. Also stormwater, traffic circulation, truck turning radius, and sidewalks. This project scores a 20, which is pretty significant on the project prioritization matrix. Sidewalks are proposed, but this is council's first opportunity to review a fee in lieu of pedestrian facilities. Per the request found in your packet, along with the calculations, it's determined that a fee of $4,232 is required. Considering the PED plan, the fees collected were to go into another fund for other opportunities to update our pedestrian facilities in other places in the township. The Planning Commission did recommend approval of the payment of a fee in lieu for the portion of the sidewalk, just a portion of the sidewalk that's there, that's extremely costly to build because of a retaining wall requirement. Okay, next slide. This plan has come pretty far, and we feel that most of the conditions have been addressed. There are 12 remaining, and they are here. Michael Pratt is also here from Keller Engineers if anyone has any questions for him, but otherwise, that's all we have for you.
All right, thank you. I will start in the other direction. Rich?
It's, again, having seen it in the sketch plan phase, it's easier to have these discussions and everything. I'd be curious to hear staff's thoughts on we're hearing that the Planning Commission recommends the fee in lieu. Be curious how, if this is meeting the intent of this is the first use of this new ordinance, correct?
Could you show us where it would be?
Yeah.
It is.
Yes, this is the first opportunity that this has come in front of us for the fee in lieu. It's in the bottom left-hand corner. The rest of the sidewalk does follow Gerald Street the whole way up and around to the entrance. And then there's a bit of sidewalk on the other side of the entrance there as well. So they are building the sidewalk. There is just that one piece where the property is very steep that they're requesting the fee. There's no sidewalk currently on Commercial Boulevard.
Yeah, what they're putting in gets us what we really needed to have, whereas that other little leg doesn't do much of anything. And with the retaining walls, it is rather expensive, and our experience with retaining walls at Pike Street says they're really expensive.
But we did, though.
Yes. Oh.
In conjunction with the pedestrian facilities master plan, and the work that's been done on the ordinance. I mean, this is a provision that was purposefully incorporated into that ordinance to allow for the flexibility. I think these are exactly the type, from a staff perspective, these are exactly the type of situations where you have essentially high cost, low return type of situations. It's still a requirement. They met the criteria that we have identified within the ordinance in order to be eligible, and we feel that it's a very good application. I think the Planning Commission's review of this indicates the same. So from that, in that regard, I think both staff and Planning Commission are in lockstep, in agreement on the recommendation, if that in fact actually answers your question.
If I can, I'm sorry, Rich, if I can just build on Adam's point, I wanted to tip my cap, Bob, and the rest of the planning commission, recognizing kind of what they were doing here and that this is a new process. They gave this a very thorough look. I know some of the members spoke about their personal experience going out, walking the site, taking a look at it, thinking it holistically, what this sidewalk does and what the potential of going for the fee in lieu does. There were members that talked about just the thought of future extension out Commercial Drive as well, and that actually the opposite side of the street makes some sense and actually is more feasible in terms of constructability. So I just wanted to add that note and kind of commend Planning Commission for a very thoughtful discussion on this particular item.
I'll sum that up with, I love it when a plan comes together. So, no, that sounds great. I appreciate the buffer along the residential side there too. I think that's a valuable element of it and everything. And obviously, the mission of the food bank is we kind of support that. So that's all I got.
Great, thank you. Eric?
Again, thanks for, were you here for the sketch plan?
I was.
Yeah. And I know that's extra time and effort, but I think that makes this so much easier.
We agree.
So this is a question for staff, since it came up. The fee in lieu obviously doesn't cover what it would cost to actually put it in if we felt like we had to put it in. Just something that we need to be thinking about. In this case, it sounds like we'd be better off crossing there and investing in a different area, which isn't bad, but I'm concerned it might open up the door for more of this in cases where we definitely want it in, and then we're stuck putting it in and only getting we're only getting a partial amount for fee in lieu. And it's not something for discussion tonight, it's just something to note as we work the kinks out of the plan. But I think if I heard Lindsay and Don correctly, we have a better path to connect. That sidewalk, the sidewalk they're putting in extends far enough to connect with the sidewalk going down to College Avenue.
Yes, correct. That's what,
So
that was a real.
value in that would be for going further out Commercial, and you're saying we would probably cross.
Be on the other side of the road.
So in this case, it works fine.
Yeah.
But I'm worried about subsequent cases where they meet the threshold for fee in lieu, we really need the sidewalk, and we're not getting near enough for what it costs to put it in.
Procedural question, is still 100% council's purview whether to grant, to accept the fee in lieu and everything. But I think where you're going is if we didn't accept it in one spot and accepted it in another.
Yeah, because I'm that guy.
Yeah.
Setting precedent is.
Yeah. No, but, ultimately, it's always council's,
So
but we
can
better have good reasons.
We're building the rationale here that we might have to build in the future in the other direction.
Good.
Okay.
Dustin?
Yeah, so just for clarification, that point where this fee in lieu and the sidewalk, right, that is at the intersection of Commercial and Gerald Street? Okay. So just for staff recommendation in the future, it would be helpful when we're talking sidewalks, because we actually physically walk on the ground, to have actual photos included in the packet.
Okay.
So, like I could, picture myself standing on that corner. Okay, yeah, I got it, right?
Okay.
That's where we're not having a sidewalk. Other than that, I have no other questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Dustin. I have no questions. I think all the questions were answered. Just thanking the food bank again for the work that you do in our community. It's important work, and it's nice to be able to offset some of the cost in this way. So.
Yeah, thanks everybody for your comments and questions. I also appreciated the narrative about the truck pullout and how that still meets PennDOT's, second tier expectations, which given again that it's not a PennDOT road, right? But that's just what we're using, the standards we're using.
Yes.
Then I feel comfortable with that too. And I too am comfortable with Planning Commission's recommendation and the thorough thought that they put into this. So I'm happy to go with that. Also, the buffer plannings are great. That connection and that service is a really, it's just such a good spot. I'm really excited for it. So, okay. Any comments or questions from the public? Anybody online, Susan or Jen? Okay. With no further ado,
Madam Chair, I move to approve the preliminary final land development plan of the State College Area Food Bank Building Addition dated March 1st, 2023, as revised on March 7th, 2023, subject to the following conditions. Within 90 days from the date of approval by council, all conditions must be satisfied. Final signatures must be obtained and the plan must be recorded with the Center County Recorder of Deeds Office. Failure to meet the 90-day recordation time requirement will render the plan null and void. Number 2, pay all outstanding review fees. 3, address to the satisfaction of the township engineer any outstanding plan review comments from staff. 4, fully comply with College Township Code Section 108-12. Just out of curiosity, that's that digital file one that used to be a whole paragraph. I really appreciate that one line. Number 5, post surety as approved by the township engineer prior to recordation. 6, approve request for fee in lieu of the 47 square yards of pedestrian facilities along Commercial Boulevard. 7, provide approved College Township highway occupancy permit prior to occupancy. 8, provide proof of the MPDES approval. 9, work with College Township zoning officer to establish formal address. 10, provide intent to serve letter from University Area Joint Authority. 11, provide intent to serve letter from College Township Water Authority. And finally, number 12, all conditions must be accepted in writing within 7 days from the date of the conditional approval letter from the township engineer.
Second.
any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you so much.
Welcome to College Township.
All right, next, manager's update.
Yes, thank you. Couple of quick items here. First, as usual, Pike Street, line painting, as you've noticed, has been underway. I believe that's wrapped up.
Yeah, Monday, Tuesday, they completed.
Okay, and we have tree planting, as we heard from Sue, scheduled for next week. And also, I just wanted to remind everybody that we do have a dedication ceremony coming up on April 21st as well. And so be looking for invitations going out for that. We're expecting to at least solicit invitations to, or to provide invitations to the varied members of council that have worked on the Pike Street project over the course of the last
Oh, fun.
12, 15 years or so. So it should be a nice event. I know that Mike and his team have been working very hard pulling that all together. So I'm expecting a very nice event. The other thing I did want to mention quickly here is there is an attachment to the manager's update specific to the Pike Street by Keller Engineering. So that council may have some questions there. We're fortunate we have Mr. Pratt happens to be here in the audience with us this evening. Should council wish to pursue or have any questions relative to that. Moving on here, I also wanted to specifically talk about the LTAC project on Oak Ridge and Shamrock. We are going to be advertising next week for bids. Bids are going to be received on April 27th, and the award is anticipated to be made by council at its meeting on May 4th. I believe I have the sequencing correct. Okay. So that is in process. So
Yeah, first advertisement's Monday.
So there you go, first advertisement on Monday, look for that. Thompson Woods Preserve, after a long effort, we do have the inaugural meeting of the Thompson Woods Preserve Governance and Advisory Committee is going to be held next Tuesday, April 11th. Tom Fontaine, myself, Mike Bloom, various members of staff, I know Amy will be there. Basically, we'll be present for the kickoff, and essentially, what our intention is to set up both the advisory committee and the governance committee with what their respective tasks and responsibilities are going to be, and in essence, turn over to those two groups the overall management and formal recommendation process for various improvements, maintenance items, et cetera, through the governance committee back to State College Borough and/or College Township. So we're excited that we're finally getting that off the ground and getting that moving forward. So looking forward to that. And finally here, I'm sorry, no, actually, we're going to be talking about the franchise agreement a little bit later this evening. That is everything that I have, but I'll be happy to try to answer any questions.
Questions for Adam? Staff.
I was just going to say, just a comment that we have to add an unfortunate note to 2105, the path to campus.
Yes, actually, we did not, we did not receive CFA funding in this latest round. That was the DCED funding round of the Commonwealth Finance Agency. That said, we still have yet another, and it's the second time has been submitted. We have the Commonwealth Finance Agency PennDOT funding for multimodal is in the hopper, but those awards are not anticipated to be made until the fall.
I meant to check on that. I think summer is the earliest, fall's probably more likely. But yeah, it's essentially the sister program to the CFA through DCED. Basically the exact same application, same request. Makes it much easier to submit them. So it's not too dissimilar from what you saw the first time we went through. Cross the fingers.
As an aside on that, I had the opportunity today to speak with Tom Fontaine and some other matters, but this issue came up, and State College Borough is in fact working on an ongoing contract basis with Delta Development. There is a pot of money, again, through the infrastructure bill, that has been designated and targeted for joint jurisdictional projects that we may have an opportunity to partner much more directly with both State College Borough and with Penn State University.
Great.
And the initial thinking there is that this is the type of project that is almost tailor-made for that type of funding program. So we will be pursuing, in addition to the CFA grant program, we're going to continue to look for other opportunities where we may have the chance to tap into other types of funding for this project, because it's an important project.
Glad to hear it. All right, other questions? You had something, Dustin?
Yeah, I had a question for something that wasn't on the report. Just a quick, spring has sprung, and I see Amy's here. I didn't know if we had an update on the spongy moth endeavor.
So, yes, the Conservancy is actually going to have the mountain sprayed. They reached out to the vendor who Patton Township awarded to and was able to, I don't want to say work a deal, but they were able to piggyback off of that. So it basically gets sprayed all at the same time. And they will be including both Stony Batter and a portion of Mountainside Park. So then when it's basically all said and done, they'll basically provide us with an invoice.
And is Thompson Woods something we inquired about as well? Is that able to be done, or is it too close to residents?
We inquired through Clearwater and never really got a true answer that they govern that, or they, what's the word I'm looking for? Manage it, yes.
Yeah. So at this point, I think that, and that's going to be in all likelihood a topic of the conversation either Tuesday night or certainly soon thereafter, because our window is starting to close. But to this point, we haven't gotten a satisfactory indication at this point whether or not that's really going to be plausible.
Okay, thank you.
A question for Adam.
Yeah.
The joint jurisdictional grant, is the timeline similar for deadline for application?
That I do not know. I only learned of it today, so I honestly don't have the details yet.
And I assume since it's joint jurisdictional, we'll have some assistance in preparing the grant. It doesn't all fall to us.
That would be my impression. Yeah, that is my impression based on the conversation. I think that there would be work from all three parties. that would be
Penn
involved.
State's lobbying efforts may also come into play.
I would imagine.
Well, I'm also glad to hear that the borough is thinking about it. It's not
Yeah,
just
that's
us
on there.
knocking on everyone else's doors.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's
That is
really encouraging. All right, anything else? Manager, okay.
Did, the only, I'm sorry, the only thing, Don,
Second and eight.
or Michael, was there anything in the additional information that was provided that you felt compelled to speak to this evening?
Not if there's not any questions to it.
Okay, very good then.
Mike?
I actually will chime in as assistant manager report.
It's in smaller.
That's right. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to nip this in the bud.
I'm all about it. This is good.
He only has a small tablet though, so.
I did, yeah, I haven't graduated to the big tablet yet. I did want to note also that staff did submit a DCNR C2P2 grant. We had talked about it at the last meeting for the rehab of the basketball and tennis courts at Spring Creek Park. That was submitted this week, so again, another one of those cross your finger elements.
We need a Mike's grant update.
Yeah, Mike's grants report.
Subsection of the manager's report.
All right, I'm just gonna end it. Cog Regional County and Liaison Reports. I do have a nice list. I'm gonna use it, Jen. Here we go. Rich, Parks and Rec Governance Committee?
I thought I'd report on that the last, or maybe I'm confusing the general form, but at any rate, we tried to work our problem statement. What are we trying to solve? The two fundamental things are good elected official oversight of taxpayer dollars, and then clear lines of responsibility and authority for staff and the authority. The documents that govern those aren't real great.
Okay.
So, and the other part that we're seeking a facilitator, I don't know that we've needed it as much. We've had some very good discussions of the first two meetings so far, but it can't hurt. So,
Okay, anything else? Any other meetings?
lots of them, but I don't know if you want to hear about them.
We're good.
Yeah. A lot of Whitehall Road meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we'll fall in line and get the update on those when they come to us. Any questions for Rich? I have Dustin, Human Resources was canceled.
Cancel?
No other meetings?
No other meetings.
All right. Susan, no meetings?
No meetings.
All right. Eric, Joint Lucy CRPC meeting?
Yeah, the joint Lucy CRPC for Tuesday was actually canceled because of, I think, CRPA. It was easier for them to meet in May, so we just pushed it to May, and we didn't have a Lucy meeting.
Okay.
Today's Facilities Committee meeting was also pushed to next Thursday so that we can meet jointly with Finance.
That sounds so much fun.
We'll be co-reporting at the next meeting. And lastly, MPO, we didn't meet, but I wanted to, just a few notes of significance. As the State College Area Connector Plan Pell study moves forward, PennDOT has reached out and met separately with a lot of folks, a lot of municipalities, including Potter and Harris, and that was done in early March. The agency comments, of which College Township is one, participating agents, those comments were due March 19th. The MPO actually submitted comments on behalf of the MPO. And it was about 6 or 7 pages, and they were comments provided in conjunction between the tech chair, myself, and staff. And they were the comments didn't speak to alignments as much as they spoke to the process. And commending PennDOT for the inclusive process and all the extensive outreach they've done, which is unprecedented in road projects like this before, but did offer some additional opportunities for connecting and further outreach. The comments also noted something that's a little closer to home, and that's the need to do something out here on 322 near the Branch Road interchange. I was going to circulate the comments before the meeting. I'll circulate, for anyone who's interested, a copy of the MPO's comments after the meeting tonight, sometime tomorrow. The Pell study itself is now being, those comments are now being reviewed. We were commenting on the draft Pell, preliminary linkage study. The comments are being reviewed, and they will be, to the extent PennDOT feels necessary or appropriate, incorporated into a final Pell document, which will be released in May. In the interim, though, that document will need to go to FHWA and get approved, and then if, assuming it gets approved, it'll be released to the public in May, and then inquiring minds will find out more about what they are interested in finding out. In the meantime, PennDOT staff, and you may have read some of this, they're doing additional traffic counts in the 322 corridor between where the 4-lane ends and Bollesburg. And they're also meeting individually with all the farmers and farmers in that corridor. You know, talk about unprecedented outreach. I think that's all encouraging. Regardless of what you think about the project, you cannot deny the fact that they are doing extensive, unprecedented community outreach on this program. I mean, on this project. It clearly slows down whatever they end up doing, but, you know.
Hopefully it informs whatever they end up doing.
One final comment, Adam mentioned the bill, and it reminded me, sitting in on the tech committee meeting this week, I found out that Adam referenced the bill legislation, which provided a whole lot more money for transportation infrastructure projects. About 60% of it will be distributed via formula. So about 60% of the big chunk of money automatically goes out for projects based on the formula that determines how much money you get already. The other 40% is through discretionary grants. And that's what Adam was referring to, another pot of money for discretionary grants that we may be eligible for. Pertaining to the 60% that goes out formula, what that has meant for us as Center County is about $8 to $10 million, and that number is growing. Additional infrastructure projects are now either underway or planned to be completed in 2023, the first 2 years of the current TIP, than what originally were on the TIP. We actually had to add these projects to the TIP. You know, Mike knows how this works. $8 to $10 million, and that number will continue to grow as, you know, as PennDOT finds out more about what's available, what can be applied. That's not an insignificant number, and what it really means is things that are further down in the queue, farther out projects, are being moved up, and there are some things that weren't even in the queue where there's money specifically available for now that are needs, but they didn't merit even being in the queue, that are also being addressed, infrastructure type projects. So that's all I thought good news and worth noting.
All right, thank you, Eric. Any questions for Eric? Any further questions for staff, specifically on that one attachment to the manager's update regarding Pike Street? Anything? No. Thank you for including that. It was informative. All right. Staff PC.
Actually, what I have tonight is two different meetings. One's the 21st of March meeting, which I really don't need to go over because you had a great discussion tonight about those two projects. And it follows the same kind of thinking that we had. And Mike, thanks for bringing that out. I appreciate that. The only other thing on that March 21st was looking at the official map. And that'll lead into this next meeting, which is just recently. At that meeting, we kind of looked at the recommendations by Park and Rec, and we thought we needed more information on the justification for some of those suggestions. And so that led us then into the more formal discussion that occurred just the other evening on the 2nd of April. The 2nd of April was an interesting meeting, certainly in terms of my being on the Planning Commission. One of the things that I was really happy about was that in fact, I think all the members of the Planning Commission did their homework a little bit and offered comments on some of the Park Rec recommendations as to whether they agreed with them or they didn't agree with them. And I think that was really necessary for us. But let me start by saying that the Planning Commission, we've been beating that thing around. A lot of discussion. It was an hour and a half discussion on that point. I realize that some people think that we're nitpicking and perhaps not trusting, some of the staff work, which is exceptional for what they've done and given us. I think what we need right now is a little more clarification of what we give you in the end. I think that we need to put together a clean, comprehensive document that includes the Park and Rec suggestions that we agree with, and also the Planning Commission recommendations, because in sense it's supposed to come through the Planning Commission to Council. I will mention that the comments that were, the suggestions that were made by Park and Rec, they put a lot of time in it, it's obvious. And we think there was some redundancy in some of the recommendations. I think we should soften the language up a little bit on a couple of them. But the one that stood out the most was granting permission for fishermen to use the streams, obviously for fishing purposes. Our concern was that there's many private properties that go across the stream or go up it to and include the stream, or at least go to the edge of it. And then we run into a situation of maybe some people not wanting the fishermen to be there, cleaning up some of the refuge that's left, or just not giving permission. And we think that that should be taken into consideration. So I'm kind of giving you a heads up. That will be one of the items that we will be discussing, I think, at the next meeting, and how the Planning Commission feels about that. But it is an item that is sensitive to us, that private ownership of property. I hope we can make a recommendation at the next meeting. Staff has been pretty patient with us, giving us more information, because we have some new members, and we had to bring them up to date on what's going on in the township. So Mike and Lindsay and staff I think they're ready for a response from us, and I think we're prepared to give it once we get a little bit more information. But it is clear that we need to present you a clean, simple, clean document. You don't get into all the weeds, but you can at least understand where we're coming from.
Hey, Bob, can I just interrupt you there?
Yeah, certainly.
On the official map. I think I speak for all of council when I say this, so if anyone disagrees, please chime in. But just a reminder on that it doesn't have to be unanimous. Just we want to hear what PC has to say about the lines and the colors on the official map. So don't feel like it has to be, perfect. It's still got to go out to the public, and it's going to come to us. It's going to go to. It's not ready for approval in the final. We're not at the final, time here. So we really do appreciate all the work you do. I just don't want to, as Rich would say, what is it? Let perfection be the enemy of good. Nailed it.
Well, we've been cautiously reminded by staff to take that path. You know, we have a very spirited kind of a group, and sometimes I think I would have to admit that we are kind of getting a little too detailed and not making a wish list out of it. But
Okay,
I think we'll get through it. So
great, thank you.
that is a good reminder. The last one had to do with the Berkentine rezoning, zoning amendment consideration. I kind of outlined in the report that I put in your documents. I believe you received it. I don't think I have to go through all that, but I think the idea here is that the Planning Commission at the moment is not quite comfortable in granting that rezoning request. We understand it. We understand the rationale that's coming from staff. But and here again, I want to underline that we do have high respect and trust for the professionals that have been hired. I guess the question that comes up with some of us, and maybe more than a few of us, is that why not wait until we get the full master plan picture, rather than going to one specific area and coming up with a rezoning request, which in the end, most likely will be what is recommended, but we're not sure of that yet. I think that's why we trust that the design professionals will go through, and they may have different viewpoints on that piece of land. So in order to kind of get us together a little bit closer, staff has entertained conversations with the design professionals in terms of getting an opinion on the rezoning request. But what we're asking is maybe some communication with the design professionals to just ask our questions about some of the future concerns that we have about making this change at the moment. That could be done by communication with the Planning Commission, or most importantly, it's been appointed a committee of Planning Commission members and council members and staff. That oversight committee could also be communicated. That's up to staff, I think, to make that decision. I think once we have that communication with their justification and how they feel comfortable with that being made early, will give us the point that we can move on. And I think we're mindful of the timing. Believe me, we are, Mike. But I think we can wrap it up perhaps by the next meeting. We get a little more communication.
I'm sorry, you're looking for communication from whom?
We're looking,
Yeah, if
you
you don't
want
mind.
to take it,
I can just,
assistant manager.
I'll give it, my next addendum. I commend Planning Commission. They have had thoughtful discussions. For this one in particular, I think it's a bit of a trust but verify scenario where, they've heard what staff has had to say. They just want confirmation from our contracting consultant DPZ to verify that if they do recommend or move forward a recommendation to council about this rezoning, that it doesn't do anything to hamstring the future plans or trajectory of the development of form-based code or some hybrid version of form-based for the greater Dale Summit. So the concern was, and Bob, please jump in if I state anything wrong. The concern was that if we make a decision now, are we harming ourselves in the future, which I think is a valid question. And as you're aware, when we brought DPZ under contract, One of the elements that we put into their scope of work was these type of interim changes to the existing zoning ordinance that build momentum towards what the future vision is in the Dale Summit. So to Bob and Planning Commission's request, I think that's a valid concern and request that they're looking for. And I think we can accommodate that as part of their next meeting, either by some formal correspondence with DPZ or requesting that the consultant is actually on the meeting, probably most likely Zoom, to just have some of that preliminary discussion with PC to either confirm some of their concerns or to, hopefully mitigate the concerns that are there.
So Bob, I just have a quick question based on your report and then the written report. Is Planning Commission right now leaning on recommending a denial of the rezoning?
No.
Okay.
I think that I'm speaking for everyone, and I have to be careful.
I know, it's tough.
I think that there is concern about getting to the larger picture to then talk about the smaller components. That's always a planning principle that we use. Here, there's some energy behind this recommendation to rezone, and we hear it, we understand it. I think it's a matter of us being confident that the planners are confident that this interim will not harm what Mike expressed it.
Right,
The
yeah.
overall.
It's a big, right, it's got a lot of moving parts, a lot of questions. It was not a small ask of us, especially in a short time window, so.
Well, that's our job, you know.
Right.
I mean, we looked at it carefully, maybe overlooked at it in a couple cases, but I think that at least two of the members of the Planning Commission had some pretty significant points to bring out.
Great.
And so,
All right, well, we look forward to getting that recommendation from you. Thanks
right.
so much, Bob.
I think one other thing, it's evident tonight, when we went through the hospital and the State College Food Bank, the sketch plan submissions are significant. They allow you, as well as the Planning Commission, to really get a handle on the projects and to make recommendations that get resolved. I don't know, staff, if you're allowed to request, I mean, you can request them. It would be nice if you could make them a part of the process, because it's so, you really get a clear picture of what's going on informally at first. So,
Thanks.
Any other questions?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob. Just a quick comment on that. We can request and strongly suggest to the developers to go through the sketch plan process. We can't compel them to do that. And we do. Any significant project that comes through, that is always an option that is discussed in preliminary meetings with developers. It's a great opportunity to get preliminary feedback that's going to assist you in the design process and make the process itself go much more smoothly.
Great. All right, anything for the DEI agenda? Diversity, equity, inclusion. Anybody in the public have anything to add on that agenda item? All right, seeing none.
Well, I'd just like to comment, I appreciate the QR code.
Oh, yeah.
That was nice, I tested it, actually worked. So that's.
We can thank Jen for that.
Yeah, that was.
It was smart.
It
Okay,
was.
both of you will give the assistant manager's report.
That's great. All right, consent agenda. Give me just a moment to get back to my Monday packet. Oh, actually, I have it printed, don't I? I always forget that. All right, CA1, approval of March 16th, 2023 regular meeting minutes. CA2, receipt approval of the following correspondence. A, an email from John Ferguson, March 15th, regarding meeting follow-up. B, email from John Ferguson dated March 15th regarding Hauserville Road speeding short speeding short and long-term plans. C, email from Jude Larkin, March 15th, regarding neighbor concerns on Pike Street. D, letter from Moving On, dated March 27th, 2023, regarding PSU student-sponsored Spring Music Festival. It's that time of year. E, email from Steven Seltzer, dated April 1st, regarding Center Markets. F, email from Pamela Zimmerman, dated April 1st, regarding Center Markets. And G, email from Sherry and Seth Clark, April 3rd, also regarding Center Markets local food grants. H, letter from PADEP, April 3rd, regarding annual waste load management, Chapter 94 report, Spring Creek Pollution Control Treatment Facility. Would anybody like any of those pulled?
Am I the only one who doesn't understand why we're being pinged for Center Markets? If so, we can move on.
I actually emailed Center Markets to ask them to ask us what they need, for what they need.
Right.
So I haven't heard
If we
back.
ask to support something,
I let them know we didn't know
I guess.
what we were to do
Okay.
yet.
Yeah, I have secondhand information relative to that. My wife frequents Center Markets, and as part of the mail list, or the newsletter that goes out. Essentially, this has to do with the central kitchen that is being developed in Ferguson Township. And many of the purveyors that are at Center Markets, which is located at Nature's Pantry, have the opportunity to utilize that facility that is being developed in Ferguson Township. And they are anticipating that in conjunction with that ongoing development of that central kitchen, that there will be grant requests. And the purpose of you being contacted as individual municipality elected officials is to help you to understand that it's important for College Township, Patton Township, Harris Township elected officials to support those grant applications as they come forward.
Okay.
Okay. I wanted to just clarify for the public that CA2C, what was as an addendum to the manager's report, addresses that from the Keller engineers, right? Addresses that letter, the concerns within that letter.
Official engineering response.
Yeah.
Yeah, good point. All right, without any further comment on the consent agenda, I'll accept a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Any further questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? All right, motion carries. Consent agenda approved. Moving on to old business 1, Chantel Cable franchise agreement.
At your last meeting, which I was not able to attend, but there was a conversation with respect to the proposed Chantel Cable franchise agreement. As you know, we, as well as Harris Township and Patton Township, had been contacted in the second half of 2022 about the prospects of establishing a cable franchise agreement for Chantel, which is Shenandoah Communications, to begin cable TV operations in these 3 townships. Chantel has previously established similar agreements, franchise agreements in both State College Borough and in Ferguson Township. Those are both in place as we speak. And Chantel then branched out to the other 3 townships. So since toward the end of last year, we have been working on some draft language, working with the Cohen Law Group, who we've worked with on a number of our various wireless communications facilities ordinances, as well as the original Comcast franchise agreement. That draft agreement has essentially been developed. I understand that based on the review from the last meeting, there were a couple of questions specifically surrounding about what the distinct differences between the 2 franchise agreements were. I believe that the email that was provided by the executive director of CNET, Cindy Hahn, did an excellent job of really capturing the true difference that exists in the franchise agreement already in existence with Comcast versus Chantel. A lot of that has to do, virtually all the differences have to do with the way that the CNET, the PEG program, is actually funded, and because of the because of the entry into market situation for Chantel, clearly does not have the same type of basis for peg payments and fees for support of the CNET services that Comcast does. So I think unless there are any other questions, I think that the issue or the matter of the agreement is right for council's consideration. But again, if there are any questions, we can have those discussions, and I can get additional information as required.
All right, questions, Rich?
Just to clarify, the difference isn't that they're gonna pay, it's how they're gonna pay.
That's
Because of their entry into the market and everything.
Great, thank you. Further?
Did you have other questions?
No, I was just.
Since you brought it up, Adam, is Ferguson, the borough, already have an agreement with Chantel?
That is correct.
So I
It's
guess.
identical.
Okay.
Okay. I can sit here while somebody decides to make a motion.
Madam Chair, I move to adopt ordinance O-23-01.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion or questions from the public or council? Yeah, Rich.
Just procedural, do we have to authorize the manager to sign? Is
Yeah,
that a separate-
if an amendment would be appropriate for consideration, move to approve the ordinance 02301.
Well, I'll just withdraw
execute.
my movement and then someone else can make that. How about that? That way we don't have to
Just
amend
add
it.
and
Yeah.
execute.
All right, I'll move
And-
again.
and authorize
I'll withdraw
the
my-
manager-
Yeah.
the manager-
I'll withdraw my
the manager or the
previous.
chair?
Should be the chair.
You got
The
it,
chair.
John.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my previous motion and I'll make another motion. Madam Chair, I move to adopt ordinance O-23-01 and authorize the manager to execute the cable franchise agreement with Shenandoah Cable Television LLC. Is that correct?
That's correct.
I'll second the motion.
All right, any further discussion or amendments or questions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All right, motion passes.
Thanks, Dustin. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to trip you up there.
OB1 is done. OB2, e-bike program update. And just so everybody knows, Mr. Shields has stuck with us via our Zoom account, which is great. So, Mr. Bloom.
Sure. This is just a continuation of our discussion from the last meeting. As you recall, we had a pretty lengthy discussion about the potential for an expansion of the Spin e-bike program into College Township. At the last meeting, just kind of referencing the comments that were made earlier, what you were looking at was a review of an initial staff proposal dealing on topics such as service area, areas of no ride designation, geofencing, speed limiting, as well as potential parking locations. You also saw the initial review comments of that staff proposal from the Parks and Rec Committee. At the conclusion of your discussion, there was a couple primary takeaways, but one that I wanted to address tonight. One of the requests was to get a copy of the master service agreement between Spin and Penn State University, as this extension or expansion agreement is referencing that original master services agreement. Did reach out at your bequest to Cecily Zhu, who is Penn State University Transportation Services Sustainable Transportation Program Manager, with that request. But I also followed it with some additional questions that were pertinent and brought up during council's discussion. Cecily did share back that at this time she is unable to share the agreement outside of university personnel for a variety of reasons, but did offer to answer any questions that council may have on that agreement. And she further went on to provide responses to the questions that were asked at the meeting, such as the current agreements, what's the renewal period. She did note that was coming up again next year, and at this point she was anticipating an extension of that agreement. The question about negotiation on user rates, would that occur prior to renewal, and would the expansion of a market have any bearing on those rates. And she noted that, with College Township's expansion, it doesn't necessarily move the needle. That what Spin has done at this point has basically oversaturated the market a bit with the bikes, and to do anything else may require some additional subsidy. And then last but not least, the question about would Spin consider a rate change in areas of lesser density or longer commutes, the recognition of you're moving into some rural areas, and does that have any bearing? And she noted that the schedule or the system is not set up to calculate rates in that way. So what staff's looking for tonight, again, is kind of that next step in direction from you, is one, if you had any additional questions of Cecily or Penn State regarding the Master Services Agreement or other topics related to the SPIN program. And then second, and what we talked a little bit about at the last meeting, I'm seeking direction from council on should I commence discussions with SPIN related to those issues that we talked at length last time: service area, the no-ride areas, geofencing, speed, and parking locations or hubs. One of the things I did want to point out, and it goes back to the comments that were raised earlier by Mr. Shields, is what was provided to you in terms of parking locations. You remember the filter that I attached to it is we were showing you potential parking locations that there was some level of public control, that the township had either owned the properties or they were regionally held. But there is the recognition that realistically, once, if this were to go into College Township, chances are there's better parking locations or more important hubs in the system resting on private property or expansion of existing right-of-ways. So that issue that was raised, which that comment was also raised as well by Parks and Rec, is something that would be party to that discussion with SPIN. They obviously know kind of how their system works better than we do at this point, but I did want to underscore that point about parking.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we have responses from Penn State about the agreement. So let's start with that first. Susan, do you have further questions for Ms. Zhu, or what do you think about those responses?
The only question I have is why we're not privy to the master agreement if we're signing on as an extension to the master agreement. There are several reasons, but I don't understand that.
I wonder if she didn't articulate those clearly. I can ask that of why is she not allowed to share?
Right. It seems to me we'd be agreeing to something we don't really know we're agreeing to.
Maybe it becomes public and they don't want their agreements public. I don't know. Are there ways that we can keep it not public?
My inexperience at this point with how this works, so I'm willing to be open to.
And just on top of that, I'd like to get some legal opinion around that. If we're a party to it, then we should be privy to see it. That's just non-legalese, but that's where I'm at too with the agreement. Did I cut you off? Sorry.
No.
I just don't think it's good practice to sign on to something that is, we're entering into an agreement when we're not allowed to see the base or foundational documentation of which our agreement references, right? So we should be able and privy to see all references of our agreement. So if SPIN wants me to support this agreement, I'd like to see all the agreements and documents that it references. Right, in Penn State the same way. I would love to have SPIN come in here, and that's my, I don't know what questions to ask because I haven't been allowed to read the document. So, hey, I'll answer whatever questions you want, but I don't know because I haven't seen the document. So, how do I know what questions to ask?
Eric?
I agree with Dustin, but I was looking at it, assuming that we would see an agreement at some point, that we were just gauging council's general desire to move forward. Mm-hmm. Did I misinterpret that? That the next step would be reaching out to them for a draft agreement?
What SPIN has provided to date is a sample of the expansion, the service area expansion agreement. I can seek confirmation as would we see it at any point. I think right now, based on the responses I got, I don't have a good answer. I think it's probably no. But
that makes absolutely no sense, because who in their right mind would enter into an agreement that you don't see? And I'm just.
Yeah, no, I understand and share the concern.
Because my first response, when you shared, that Penn State won't share it, is, well, let's just get it from Spin.
That question has not been asked directly to Scott.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the Penn State, you know, sometimes you're public when it suits and sometimes you're private when it suits. So I understand that role, you know, I understand them not wanting to share the agreement.
Aren't we all?
But Spin should be able to provide it. And the only other question I had was, since Gene was here tonight, remind me if Daleview was in the Park and Rec original location, or we added that because of its proximity to the bike trail?
Staff showed it as a potential parking location due to that. Parks did make the recommendation that echoed what Mr. Shields said tonight. They were concerned about the potential impacts at Daleview, and one of the concerns was about the advertising kind of commercial aspect to this operation.
Okay, so what we got in the packet that had those little tables
Yep.
with the lists in it had Daleview.
Right. It referenced
all
that
the
as one of the
parks, right.
parking locations in
Even
their
though
comments.
Park and Rec didn't support that.
Right.
Or that wasn't unanimous.
Correct. Correct. It was, you know, that note was passed on to you as this is based on the review of that initial staff proposal. This is what Parks' thoughts and recommendations are.
Okay, so Gene's comments align with what
Correct.
Parks had recommended.
Yep.
So it'll be up to us to determine if proximity to the bike trail is more relevant than the concerns about the traffic coming through the neighborhood to get to the park.
Correct. And again, you know, that particularly parking in this discussion, I think, is probably the most fluid aspect of this expansion, because Spin will tell us kind of what the market will bear in terms of where the demand is, so.
Well, if we're just limiting questions to Penn State agreement right now? Okay.
If we can, yeah. Rich?
I think I'm a little more sympathetic to proprietary agreements. I think there's a level of people that should be involved with that. I don't know if that, you flat out said, we're not lawyers. So those are the ones that should protect us. We could ask potentially for a boilerplate master agreement. That'll give us the gist of the language. That should be okay with it and stuff. If I had to suspect, Penn State is subsidizing this pretty well. They don't want it known. And they don't want it known.
Or they could
And
redact information
and
too.
well, but we'd ask, what's that redacted? You know, that's how we are. But the big thing is, I mean, at this point, we're not opening the doors to the township carte blanche. They have to come in and have specific agreements for specific places in that and everything. I think that gives us the authority to carve out the Dale views and the other ones and that. You know, the opening to commercial, I get it, but if they were opening an office in Daleview or Spring Creek Park or something like that, but if you extend that argument, every time we let a food truck in the park, we're opening to commercial access. The Miller High Life tournament at Oak Hall, that's a branding thing there, you know, there's a lot of those that could come out of that. But I think what we're trying to achieve with use of the bikes is a greater goal in everything. I support the moving forward and seeing where we're going. The master services agreement, I would hope we would engage our solicitor to protect us if there's any language in there, and then they're protected by their ethics.
Madam Chair.
Yes, please.
If I may, just a quick comment. I just want to, for my own sake of understanding, what we're really talking about here and why we're having a conversation here at College Township Council has to do with the potential for allowing Spin to utilize publicly owned facilities for the purposes of offering e-bike service. In this case, this doesn't in any way preclude Spin or another commercial entity of some kind that has no bearing and no direct relationship to public facilities in College Township from entering into their own agreement. Correct?
I think the limiting factor at this point, Adam, yes and no.
Okay.
In order to get into the market where they can park and service the bikes, then there has to be a municipal extension agreement. Nothing right now precludes any user of Spin to come into College Township, ride about College Township, wherever they so choose, but they can't either access a bike or return a bike. Essentially, that's what it boils down to within College Township.
Gotcha. Thank you.
They can drop it on the side of the road like they do, but they can't return it to a return station.
Right.
So spin requires that there be that element.
That's why
as
they're-
part-
yeah.
Got it. And I thank you for the clarification.
Yeah, the agreement builds in protections for both parties in that regard. But yeah, it is a limiting factor for, that we have at least one property owner that wants them here.
Right.
To have that service available. But right now, they cannot execute any agreements of their own with Spin because there's not an extension into College Township.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Can you help me understand what the subsidy piece looks like?
That's most likely to Rich's.
Well, I don't care how, I'm
Yeah.
not saying how much. I didn't even realize it was subsidized, I guess, until that response came.
Yeah, my understanding is, there's some contribution from Penn State that's offsetting or at least incentivizing this service within
Okay.
the area.
Okay.
I don't have any idea what that number looks like
Right.
or what that agreement is because we haven't seen
Yeah, I
it.
think the first time, it was probably almost a year ago, that we talked about this, and Cecily was online. She had just briefly noted that, mentioned it. Yeah.
Okay, okay. All right, now to take on step 2 of this discussion. Any direction for Mike to take regarding parking spots, potential parking spots that we have control over? I think that's like the big question.
No, actually, honestly, the bigger question is, I'm seeking your authorization to start discussions with Spin
Okay.
about the larger mapping.
Okay.
To kind of give you, it kind of echoes the point that Bob had about official map, to give you a cleaner copy of what we think would work in this area
Right.
before you execute any.
So this is like a walk forward or break it off point?
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we'll just go down the line.
Walk
Susan.
forward.
Okay, Dustin?
Yeah, I support walking through. I see no reason to stop working while we try to sort things out with Penn State and Spin, on the other hand.
Rich?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mr. Shields?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, just a comment. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, just a comment. I know Rich brought up about the food truck and when they have like the Miller Highlights tournament, whatever. That's two different things. You're talking a weekend or maybe a couple of weekends of something being at the park versus something being here 24/7 that people will have access to all the time. Not only this park, but all the parks. And none of the parks are to be open after hours, so you're just inviting people to go to the parks when they shouldn't be there. I mean, having Spin in your township is a great idea. I really think it is. Having it, having a base, a foothold in any park in the township, I don't think is a good idea. And I'll get off now.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Shields.
That's not what we're determining tonight.
But he was speaking to
Right.
Rich's
I
comment.
don't fully agree. When you open the door to commercial, you open the door to commercial. The 24/7, we have no crystal ball to know whether it's going to be used 24/7.
Right, and that,
We also have no idea if Spin is interested whatsoever in having a parking site at any of these parks and everything. So that's why the moving forward to have this discussion.
Yeah, when staff developed their proposal, it was a recognition of, we're not going to show anything on private property. So short of that, where are some potential locations that maybe make sense for parking? We just picked those. To that point, you did hear from Parks member at the last meeting who has some history with this, and he just kind of echoed the comments that they pass along, that parks may not be the most attractive parking
Right.
location based on the typical user pattern. And those are the things that would be fleshed out with the, moving forward with discussions with Spin.
Go ahead.
Just, they have agreements with the borough and everything. We could see if how they're.
And another municipality, right? Or no?
They have agreements currently with the borough, Ferguson, and Patton.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
they're in parks in all three of those townships, so.
So it gives us a feel for how that's working.
Yeah, good
So-
questions.
right.
And the we did raise the after dark question.
And that's not necessarily saying it's applicable at Daleview, it just means there's some resource to go to.
Daleview
for
is
some
probably
context.
low on the priority,
yeah.
Spin's priority level there. There are maybe one or two other sites in the township that would be more of an interest. I'm thinking actually game day, parking and tailgating, transport,
Be a great way to get to the game.
yeah, type of thing. Anyway, so is that enough?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't want to move forward with any discussion with Spin if there was not a comfort level around the table.
Right,
Recognize
okay.
there's still some questions to be answered, but I'll start moving that ball forward.
So this was like a litmus test
Sure.
check-in.
Yep.
Got it, thank you. All right, new business 1, PSATS Resolution 2023 Annual Conference. We all miss Paul Takak very much, but not when it comes to PSATS resolutions, so this will go differently. Who is our delegate? Susan.
I am yours to do with what you will.
Okay, so what we'll do is I trust that you all read through these at your leisure over this week. And if anybody has any that they vastly disagree with, speak now or forever hold your peace. Rich, anything to point out?
Nothing jumped.
Okay, Eric?
Nope.
Dustin?
Yeah, all those ones from Center County, no, I mean, we're,
Take it back.
I walk that fast. No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Susan?
No, I look to council to give me guidance.
Okay, you'll have a great time. Your arm will get tired. Get a nice voting card. You feel very important. It's a lot of fun. Okay, so without further ado, Susan has been given instruction to follow suit. Also, if at any point you feel like discussion has taken, you have decided something other than what is there, we trust you to vote your conscience in that time. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, NB2.
My turn, okay.
Amy, council room window replacement.
Sure. This is really just an informational item. There's no action required tonight. But it seems to be the theme this year in terms of cost increases. So I just wanted to bring to council's attention, of course, one of the projects that we have slated this year is a replacement of the original windows here behind you in this room. Last year when we met with the architect to kind of talk about what's needed to do that, we estimated the construction cost between $65,000 and $70,000. I had budgeted around $80,000, trying to account for some, design fees, etc. And unfortunately, with our most recent conversations with window manufacturers, etc., it looks like the estimated cost is going to be roughly about $94,000. So if that holds true, we would have a shortfall of about $23,000. And if you do the math, the reason why it's not quite is part of the design fee that the architect provided was the structural engineer's fee. That ended up coming in very low comparatively. In fact, there's about a $3,000 savings on that estimated cost. So that gives us a little bit back up towards it, but still, we would still be at about a $23,000 deficit. So bids are due next Friday. It is competitive bidding. We're not seeing a lot of interest, unfortunately. We don't know if there's just so much work out there that this is just too small of a project. But again, competitive bidding, we'll know more next Friday, and I'll be back with whatever recommendation we feel is prudent once we actually receive whatever bids. So just be prepared.
And these windows right here?
Yes.
The ones we never see?
We never see, yes.
What about brick?
Plywood.
yes. Oh, it's a beautiful view.
It's an absolute beautiful view.
It's a beautiful view.
You're not allowed to open the curtains.
So,
Understand, the reason why the curtains are drawn when you're in the room has to do with CNET and filming
I know.
and glare.
Are they custom windows? Is that why they're so expensive?
well, it's a little bit of both, and it happens to be that we have the architect who's helping us on this project. in the But it actually is a bump out window. It actually isn't there's a bump out, so there's structural steel that's a part of it. The windows are partitioned, the floor, the full height there, and they are operable. We are actually looking to do with non-operable, which will save some cost, but it is it's just a unique feature. So
When council and PC has their joint meeting, I want those curtains open.
I think I've opened the curtains more than the 3 years I've been here than I've ever remembered them being open. Because I love the view, it's just gorgeous.
Just remember, we were never allowed to open them, but times have changed. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right, comments?
Fingers crossed for low bid.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of all we can do,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm really hoping that this trend breaks, because I really hate coming with my hat in hand.
Windows and doors right now
No,
are,
and lead time.
Well, that
and lead times are.
We did hear
nail
from
biting.
a potential bidder that, we're hoping by August that we'd be ready to do everything, and we're not sure that's gonna happen either, even if we do go forward with the project.
So the cost is for the manufacture of the windows and also
Of installation, yeah.
and the installation both, right? Okay.
Yeah, we actually even tried to keep the cost down by having staff do some of the general just demo, the window treatments, the shelf, just some other basics, but it's still unfortunately estimated to be higher than we thought.
And just keep in mind, this is kind of the companion project to the Drive It, the
yeah.
continuation of the Drive It project. So we did 2 sides of the building last year.
Right.
We have 2 more sides of the building this year in terms of the new installation application of the Drive It exterior. And this is part of that overall process.
So you're replacing the windows while you're working the drive?
Exactly.
Okay. I was gonna say, it's not
Yeah.
like the COG building where they leak.
It's not.
Yeah, this
They're
one,
leaking.
these don't actually leak, but if you do open the curtains, you will see their age is showing by a long shot. They are a wood structure.
Say,
It's-
feels a little personal.
I resemble that remark.
But nonetheless, yes, and we actually are, when I bid the Drive It project, it will have a statement about working with this contractor. We don't know exactly if the timing will work. We have accommodated either or. If it happens to be that the window can come out while we're doing the Drive It, we certainly will incorporate it. If not, they'll be able to butt up against it and still provide, a complete project, just as they did last year. They didn't take every window out last year.
Okay,
So,
we trust you. Capable.
I just wanted to give you a heads up.
Okay, yeah, appreciate that. All right, without anything further, seeing none. NB3, College Township Community Night at the Spikes. Adam?
Yeah, this is basically, the last 2 years, we have held a College Township Community Night at the Spikes. And we are assuming, while we did not specifically budget for the expenditure of the Community Night at the Spikes in the 2023 budget, considering the fact that we have done it 2 consecutive years, the thought was, if we were interested to do it again this year, wanted to be able to provide you with some cost options. Last year, I believe that we funded this, the event to the tune of $5,000. My recommendation this year, if council has an interest in doing this, I would simply recommend doing it at the $3,500 level. I believe that it is as effective in terms of what we get relative to the package. And I think a little bit of cost savings for the township, but it's a nice event. And we just wanted to be sure the council had the opportunity, if you chose to exercise it, to do that again this year.
Does Susan still get to throw the opening pitch?
Absolutely, whomever you like.
Let's start practicing now.
Okay, yeah, so what do we think? Rich?
Just confirming there will also be a discounted price for College
Yes,
Township
that's
residents.
correct.
Okay.
I agree with the staff recommendation.
I agree. Does it require an amendment to the budget?
No, it does not. It's an insignificant amount of money, but we weren't going to spend money we didn't authorize.
Okay.
It's in the assistant manager's.
There you go.
Grant.
His report budget.
His report budget.
You'll be set next.
What action do you need for this?
Actually, I just need a consensus of the council
Okay.
that, did you want to participate, number one, and at the level?
Okay, Susan?
Agreed, level B.
Okay, sounds like you got option B.
With the first
Thank you.
Thank you for your, thank you for your direction on that. Staff, other matters? Anything? Yes?
At the risk of
The floor is yours.
Ridicule. I just wanted to note that we are still in the development process of the capital improvement program. At some point in here, as we talked about, I'll be reaching out to you to schedule at least one, most likely more than one, work session that's going to incorporate strategic planning elements into CIP, but just keeping that on your radar screen, those will be coming soon.
Will they be up here with the windows open, the curtains open?
We could do that. We could do that.
Just like so loosey-goosey around here. All right, any questions about staff informatives?
The April 21st event, is that the Pike Street?
That's correct.
Do we have an idea what time of day that might be?
I believe we do. 1 o'clock?
Okay.
It's a Friday.
There's that chamber legislative breakfast in the morning. It won't be the morning then.
It will not.
Okay. Council staff, other matters? Yes.
The Oak Ridge people have been saying how when you drive down and you're driving the speed limit, people will pass you. I actually had that happen to me today. I sort of thought, no, I just can't believe anyone would do that.
Oh, yeah.
I had a BMW blow by me. I was doing 23.
In the Bolt? Were you in the Bolt?
No, I was in my car.
Did you take its plate? Let's find out where they live.
Yeah, he was gone.
Oak Ridge.
Yeah.
Probably one of those plate covers.
Oh,
you can't
I've been
read.
passed on Oak Ridge. Yeah,
that's
because I'm a
homicidal.
solid 25er.
Oh my gosh.
You have to.
What if a kid stepped out? Oh, my God.
So
I had one other matter. Were you going to continue? I'm
I
sorry,
was
I'll
going
wait.
to make a cynical comment that's unnecessary.
I saved you.
Duly noted.
I just wanted to mention, you'll notice we have some different audiovisual equipment in the room
Yes.
here tonight. I want to commend College Township staff, in particular Jeff Coslow, as well as Shane Adams and Kirk Hollowell, who worked to help get these new display units installed.
They'll come in handy the next time we have a meeting during the NCAA wrestling tournament.
But we're still working out a few refinements, but as we all know, utilizing the previous system, the contrast wasn't there when we're looking at lines on maps and things like that. Something had to give here, and we had an opportunity to do something with a reasonable amount of money. And I think that it's turned out very well. And I just wanted to give kudos to the staff that worked to make that all happen. Thanks to Mike for helping to coordinate a lot of that. But it was a team effort, and I think it turned out really well.
Why wasn't that part of Mike's report?
I know, how was it not?
Well, I mean, when do you change the way things have worked for so long, and we didn't even, I mean, it was so seamless.
Right.
We didn't even really,
Nobody-
yeah,
nobody was to
there was
bumped
no
my head on
frustration.
it.
It was perfect. Please share our compliments
The
and thanks.
definition on the plans was much better, right?
Much
Like
better.
the pictures,
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah, great.
So you get a bigger tablet now for that.
To use Rich's term, I didn't want to be braggadocious.
So I do have just one other matter. I would like to schedule a joint council and PC meeting at some point, maybe next month. If we could send out a doodle poll, get that way ahead.
Great.
Thanks. And you can send that back.
Not yet.
You've stayed till the very end.
I don't have what I need.
Okay.
I plan to
Just-
speak to someone after the meeting about it.
Okay.
Got it. All right, anything else for the good of the order?
Must be you.
No, no.
Can I have a motion to?
Rich,
oh,
unless.
boy.
No,
Excuse me,
there was an
am I-
email that came out earlier about, in the supplemental folder regarding a CATA support letter.
Oh, right, that's right.
Oh,
sorry.
I'm,
It's in there.
yes, actually, we've written a support for the grant letter, that has been signed. I don't recall the details of the grant.
Yeah, it was, I don't remember the program, but it's a,
It was
it's.
EV.
Lower
Yeah.
node
Well,
grant
thank you.
program.
And the supplemental.
It's in the supplemental, dated April 6th.
Yeah, it's to start replacement of, I believe it was 33 buses within the fleet.
Okay,
Just
just,
typically,
Just to make us aware.
to make you aware, that we were going to lend our support, to that grant as a participating member of CATA.
the only thing in my supplemental, and Dustin's at least, is the planning commission report, so I'm not sure. Maybe we just need to
Okay, we'll look into that.
look into that, thanks. All right.
But
Now-
it's in yours, Rich?
I'm sorry, I pulled it up from your email.
It was.
Oh,
In mine it was.
I
okay.
pulled it up from your email.
It's possible I just didn't update or something.
Yeah, I just have to hit this button and it will update.
I do not have it in my, I do not have it in my supplemental.
All right.
That's
Susan gets it because she's the newest account, I guess. Right? Yeah.
Okay, motion to adjourn.
So move.
Meeting adjourned.
I'll be there.